Not Nerd Podcast, episode 328. It's Belgium Week.
Welcome to the Not Nerd Podcast. I'm Nate Heath, and we are here to help you tech better. Here with me, as always, Mr. Dave Baylor.
Hello, sir. Good to see you today on this fine Oregon rainy weather. Let's talk about the local forecast for a minute.
It's supposed to be like 70 degrees today, and I was actually at Willamette National Cemetery for a memorial yesterday, and it was pouring down rain and not warm. So that is Oregon spring weather. It is officially spring, and spring weather is giving us back-to-back days of heavy rain and then 70-degree weather. So yes, come visit Portland.
And let's not forget about our brothers and sisters down in the southern hemisphere, where it's just turning into fall down there, or autumn, as we like to say.
Yes, indeed.
So
well,
good on you, mate.
Yes, before we discuss the weather any further and get Elliot steamed down in Australia with our discussions of localities, let us move on to talking about some technology. And we'll start off with some follow-up. Now, we had briefly mentioned last week the Mac Geek Gab podcast that we had gotten a tip from, and we were saying that it is In the Weeds technology podcast, and they have the chapters where I can nicely skip to topics that I'm interested in, which you would never want to do with the Not Nerd podcast. But most of the time, if YouTube decides to update our audio podcast that we upload to YouTube just to have it available in another place, they do automatically add chapters. So if that is something you want to check out, head over to the Not Nerd YouTube page, and a lot of our episodes there will have the chapter functionality built in.
Well, how do it know, man? How do it know?
Well, since I take the time to put all the timestamps into our show notes, which is kind of a halfway workaround where you can see where we discuss different topics when it uploads to YouTube. As long as you put in a timestamp of 00:00, it will then put in the chapters automatically with all of Google's amazing servers and all that stuff. So,
well, and before we get too much farther down the road, I did want to do a shout out to our friends in Belgium. Man.
Ooh.
We have two faithful downloads. I don't know if it's one person downloading it on two devices or two people, but I tell you, week in and week out, we get downloads from Belgium. So I want to say a shout out to you. And if you're listening to this and it's just not some automated bot, get in touch with us. We'd like to know more about you. So it's Belgium Week here.
Belgium Week.
Not Nerd Podcast.
Yes. Very nice. Yeah. Any of our international listeners or any of our United States listeners, get in touch. Let us know anything. We'd love to hear from you.
Please,
questions, answers, comments, reviews, any of that stuff. We love to hear from those of you who are listening to our podcast. I did want to say, we mentioned also last week that I hadn't had a chance to try out the Universal Control, which is Apple's new feature where I can be sitting here at my desk, have my laptop, my external monitor, my built-in keyboard and my mouse here, and then if I have my iPad next to it, with everything updated, I can simply roll my mouse off the edge of the screen, and it will turn into the special mouse on the iPad, and my keyboard will work on the iPad. Now, you might be going, yeah, I can use my iPad as an external screen with Sidecar. I've been able to do that for a while now. Well, this is different. Sidecar gives you another external monitor for your Mac computer. Universal Control keeps it the iPad, so I can literally be sitting here. I could go over to the iPad. I could open up Candy Crush. I could play that. I can drag files in between my Mac and my iPad. And I did try it out some this last week. Once you get it connected, it took a couple tries, and I thought maybe it wasn't going to work with my external monitor. But once I got it set up, it was just seamless, and it is. I've seen some reviews this week of people saying it's one of Apple's best software integrations in a long time.
Well, it took them long enough. That's been in development for a long time and announced like 2 years ago.
Yes.
When it first came out, I tried it. It worked flawlessly. But I got to tell you, I'm a little late to the party. You mentioned using your iPad as a second screen for your computer.
Yes.
I have used that more in the past month than I ever have.
Yeah.
And like most things, Apple, if you have the newest Mac and the newest iPad and the newest iPhone, whatever, all the stuff works great together.
Yeah.
You get into trouble when it's like, oh, my iPad's 3 or 4 years old, but it's still supported and I've got a new Mac. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to really talk to you. I signed up for that 3 months free Panera Bread coffee type thing.
Oh, yes.
Shout out to Tyler for alerting me to that. And so occasionally I'll go in there with my laptop and I'll set up my iPad Mini 6, which is the perfect size for their individual tables. I can set up beside my computer. And I don't have to be on their Wi-Fi or anything. It uses an internal Wi-Fi Bluetooth signal for the connection. And I just have a second screen right there. So whether you use this newfangled, what do they call it again?
Universal control.
Universal control or the screen sharing, man, it's like butter. It works so great.
Yeah, so all of you listeners out there, do like I did and kind of like Dave did, start a business revolving around technology so that you can have a better excuse to buy all the latest Apple gear so you can do all these fun tricks.
Yeah. What could go wrong with that plan?
Yeah. You can't pay the other bills, but luckily I am able to do both, and I am very fortunate. I understand that most people don't have the latest stuff, but it is a very cool thing, and I could see if you were, let's say, a developer or doing something where you're working on an iPad app, but you're on your Mac, and just being able to seamlessly switch between the two is pretty cool. So,
yep.
I will do a quick sidestep. If you notice my voice deteriorating quickly throughout the episode, I do have a sore throat. I did take a Ricola cough drop right before the show with some, you could see the cracking there. But yes, I am doing okay, but I did want to make you aware that it is not your AirPods deteriorating. It is my voice. So.
Well, back on the topic of geography, we don't have any Swiss listeners who could appreciate your Ricola insert there, but we do have a listener from Germany. So we'll talk more about Germany some other time. But it's Belgium week. So
Belgium week, yes. And if we do have any listeners that yodel, I would love a yodeling version of our theme song. So that would be very fun. I'm a big fan of yodeling.
I can kind of do it, but I won't.
Let's hear it. We want that. Listeners, write in if you want to hear Dave's yodeling version of our theme song for next week.
Little old lady who. There you go.
Yes.
That's all you're getting.
And that was perfect. Spot on. And speaking of geography and countries over in Eastern Europe, I will remind people that we are the most nonpartisan tech podcast on the internet. And so we won't get too much in the weeds. We've mentioned it before, but the Starlink, Elon Musk's Starlink internet service that's based on a lot of tiny satellites up in the sky and then satellite dish receivers on the ground. So we had talked about that he had stepped up and said that he was going to really do a push in Ukraine to keep the internet up and running. And there were some reports this week, including the Minister of Technology, whoever it was, in Ukraine, that the Starlink is really working great over there, that they've got a bunch of the receivers that people, apparently the Starlink app is the #1 free app in the App Store in Ukraine.
Wow.
So it seems like that's working great. And now if he could just get it rolled out to the rest of the world and make it a little cheaper and completely cover the sky in satellite dishes, so we no longer have a sun, but we have fast internet.
Well, I would take the internet over the sun any day. But I'm wondering if we're starting to see a tool that's going to end repressive regimes, again, the nonpartisan type thing. But I, as an American, view the Russian government as more of a dictatorship. It's not a democracy at all. And there are other ones around the world. And one of the ways that those leaders use information as a tool is through propaganda, by cutting out all the other voices in the room. So if something like Starlink could become pervasive and the technology is miniaturized, I think that the voice of people is going to be unfettered across the world very soon. It's like, how are they going to stop it? You can't cut off signals from space. Well, maybe there's a way. I guess you can shoot satellites out of the
Where
sky.
there's a will, there's a way.
Anyway, I just wonder if this is the last grasp by dictators and those who control information, if this technology is going to make that a thing of the past.
Yes. And that's probably a more accurate way to phrase it. There are lots of people in all areas of the world that want to control information. And so if this is a way that possibly some of that can be opened up. So Elon Musk to the rescue once again. Or for the first time, or whatever it is. Elon Musk.
Don't forget the submarine.
Yes.
Go Team Elon.
Go Team Elon. We've talked a lot about with the Apple AirTags, because it's an Apple product, and all the stalking stories and how you could just put an AirTag in somebody's car or in their backpack and be able to track them. And so there's been a lot of, I believe, moral panic around it, where I don't think it's as big of an issue. But I did see this week that after many years in the market, Tile is finally launching some anti-stalking safety features for their network. So because Apple has put some of these things in place, Tile, who, I mean, have they been around 10 years now?
Oh, yeah.
At least 5 years. It's a very similar device. They don't have quite the mesh network of Apple devices in the Find My network, but Tile is putting some of that stuff in theirs. But there's still probably 100 different devices with GPS built in on Amazon that you could go buy that would track much better, and there wouldn't have Apple behind it, that it's just some random thing that you'd be able to track people. So I feel that it's because it's Apple, it became a big story, because anything Apple is a big story. And I'm not saying stalking isn't a thing. I'm not saying there isn't a problem. I'm just saying Apple isn't the only one. Because AirTags exist, this problem didn't start, or this wasn't a solution to not being able to stalk someone. So
yeah, and talk about stock. I bet the stock in Life 360, who recently bought Tile, is continuing to spiral down. I haven't checked, but what a story! Just a little bit too late, Tile. I think if they wouldn't have been sold, they probably would have jumped on the Apple Find My network bandwagon, and they would be relevant. But they keep becoming less and less relevant. But good on them for taking steps for anti-stalking. It's always a good thing to think about people's safety.
Yes. And our next item in follow-up, it's been a while since we've had what's new at Wyze.
Yeah.
And speaking of stalking and safety, you sent over to me, and I must have missed the email on this one, the Wyze Gun Safe.
Yeah, because everybody associates the compact, inexpensive camera manufacturer of Wyze to make a gun safe. It makes so much sense.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a $155 product. It is, as you would expect, probably like, I don't know, a 15-inch by 10-inch box with a lid with some numeric or biometric type controls to get in and out of the safe. It's for a pistol, or I suppose you might have other weapons, a small knife, or a
anything
laser
you
sword
want to keep in the safe.
Built something that can fit in there. So yeah, I'm completely agog and surprised at the products they decide to pull out. It just seems so random.
Yes, and I have seen other products like this, but again, Wyze is doing it. I think it's a great price. It does say normal price is $170, and this introductory is $155 with free shipping, but it has instant access with 0.8 second biometric fingerprint entry. But there are 4 different ways to unlock: instant fingerprint, backlit keypad, app unlock, and physical key. So it's got smart features, so it works with the Wyze app. You can see access history, battery life indicator. It does. I was surprised to see it takes 4 AA batteries, which seems very old school, but it does have a USB-C port for emergency power. So I guess
good.
you could have it plugged in, but gun safety is an important thing. But yeah, they kind of picture it with, you could keep other things in there to keep them safe. Now it is portable. So the actual measurements, 10.63 inches by 6.22 inches by 2.95 inches tall. So some very odd measurement. Oh, that's the interior. Exterior is 12.4, so that's closer to your 15 by 10.24. But I'm intrigued by this. I do not have any sort of. Well, I do have a bunch of knives, but none of them are worth buying a safe for. But if I was to buy a handgun, which it's not going to fit a rifle in there, you can't jam a shotgun into this thing, but no. I would consider this. So Wyze with they went cameras, they've got lighting, they've got vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, the vacuum cleaner was the random one, the original, the OG random, and now it's like a gun safe. But I will say, if you're going to own a handgun, you should have a safe, or any type of weapon, you should have a safe to keep your family safe.
And you know what else will keep you safe? Dave's Pro Tip of the Week.
I don't know about that, but at least it couldn't hurt. It's not going to hurt you, the Pro Tip of the Week. And before I get on to the Pro Tip of the Week, I just want to say a shout out to Philip or Philippe of Belgium, the king there. He's been the king since 2013. And shout out also to Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, who's the Prime Minister there since 2020. So I think we found our 2 listeners there in Belgium. So thank you guys.
Belgium week. Belgium week.
Yeah, I'm enamored now with Philip or Felipe, however you pronounce that. With just one name. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Like Cher or Madonna.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Same thing. So the tip of the week this week has nothing to do with the wonderful kingdom of Belgium, which is a constitutional popular monarchy and federal parliamentary democracy, as I hear. So it has nothing to do with that great nation. But it has to do with things that we've talked about before and something that I've recently been exposed to. So I wanted to cover it again. And that is using your phone as a scanner. Not so much as a document scanner, although I will touch on that briefly, but more as a photo scanner. I've had a 20-year plus history with the idea of scanning in video and photos and negatives and slides and digitizing them so that you can view them on the computer. It is not an easy process, or else everyone would do it. There's a myriad of products available to accomplish this, etc., yada, yada, yada. But the truth is, most people won't take the time or effort to buy a scanner, hook it up to their computer. If you're on a Mac, you're always dealing with drivers and it doesn't work. And what's the deal? And you got to get third-party software that sometimes can be expensive. Well, worry no more, because for the past decade or so, you could really accomplish most of this with your phone. And it has never been better than it is now. I came across an article on Petapixel just this morning. A photographer has 32,000 undeveloped film rolls of history of rock and roll. This guy, Charles Daniels, not Charlie Daniel, the famous devil down in Georgia, but a guy who was apparently an MC for a lot of these events, and he was also an avid photographer, and he took thousands of rolls of film and never developed them.
Wow.
And so he's got to get them developed, but then what is he going to do with them? They have to be scanned so that people can enjoy his work. I mean, nobody's going to come over to his house and flip through a photo album, right?
Yes.
And then also recently, I was helping a friend who has some photos, was going through some photos, who was moving. It's like, oh, do you think these could be scanned? And I'm like, well, you could do it yourself with your phone. He won't do it himself with his phone. Yeah. I will get the job of doing this, but I may just use my phone to do the job so I can do it quickly. It won't be the best way, the most high resolution way, but it'll be the fastest way. And the best tool that I have found as far as convenience versus quality on that spectrum, and we've talked about it before, is Google PhotoScan, and it's available for both Android and iPhone. This app is incredible. You put your photo down on a table or whatever. It's usually best to prop it up a little bit so you're not getting a direct overhead light glare or a shadow. But regardless, this application takes 4 pictures of the photo that you're wanting to scan in, and it merges them together. And you may be thinking, well, why does this? Does it increase the resolution to take 4? It's nothing like that at all. You'll notice that most photos are shiny. Even when they're matte, they will still produce some type of a glare. And as you move the phone around, you'll see through your viewfinder that hotspot will move around the image as you move your camera. So what it does is have you take a picture of each corner, and then it combines those pictures together to eliminate shadows that may be caused by your hand or your phone, and or hotspots produced by the overhead lights. And it does a reasonably good job. The quality of the photos are not chef's kiss. They're a little, grainy, not the best, but I tell you,
they're not going to go the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian, you're going to put a little more effort, but if you're just, for a slideshow, or something like that.
If you were to take your iPhone's main camera and take a picture of it, you would get a slightly sharper, higher resolution image, but you're going to be dealing with all those things that I mentioned before. So it's that spectrum. It's a little lesser quality, but it is still very, very good. And if you have a Google account, you can do photo scan and it puts them right into your Google Photos for you. I don't believe you have to have it to use the product. It will save photos to your camera roll, which is fine. And then you can share them from there. But it does a reasonably good job of cropping and aligning photos. So if you take them at a kind of an extreme angle to get rid of a glare or something, it will correct all that stuff. And again, it does a fantastic job of cutting out the background. It's a wonderful tool. I'm going on to our next thing, and that is an app I found on SatApp that we've talked about before. This is the subscription that you can pay a few dollars a month and get access to hundreds and hundreds of applications.
A Ukrainian-based company, I will mention.
I was not aware of that.
Yes.
And the application in there is called Photos Revive. And like most of these apps, you don't have to have a SatApp subscription to get these. You can purchase them separately.
Yes.
But Photo Revive, I just tried it a couple times with a black and white photo. You load it up, it does some magic, and boom, your black and white photo now has color. It's not perfect, but in this particular photo, the people's skin it put in there, it recognized pants and kind of made them bluish. It recognized the ground and kind of made it brownish. And Nate, here in real time, as we waste everybody's time.
1 hour later.
So Nate, here is a photo I just sent to you, and it actually is branded with PhotoScan by Google Photos because I exported it from that application.
Gotcha.
So that is the original photo. Now it looks really darn good.
Yeah.
It almost looks better than the original just because some of the contrast has been corrected. And then here is a photo that I did some slight editing on with Pixelmator to remove some creases and blotches. And then I ran it through that Photo Revive, and here's what it looks like. What do you think?
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I mean, it's not perfect, but it really
brings a lot of life to
it does. When you compare the two, it's incredible because one is black and white. It's pretty contrasty, so it's not flat. But when you add that layer of color, it's like, wow, pop.
Very cool.
Now, I did say I was going to briefly mention scanning in documents and those type of things. And I still cannot recommend a product higher than Scanner Pro by Readle. That's Readle, I believe. Scanner Pro, I believe it's a free download, and they have a pro option that you can subscribe to. I do have the pro option. It's ever difficult to find pricing once you've purchased the app because it just says download again. So, Nate, if you could, in your account, can you look up Scanner Pro by Readle and let us know what the pricing structure is for that?
Let me see. So it looks
You've
like...
probably downloaded it before, too.
Scanner Pro by Readle. It is free, and then the in-app purchases, they put... so there's a free trial, $20 a year. So you get a free week, and then it's $20 a year after the trial for the Scanner Pro Plus. And
I think that's what I have. I seem to have all the features, so I must have just swallowed my pride and purchased that a while back. I'm not sure, but For what it does, it's incredible. But even the free features are phenomenal. So it'll
Nice.
straighten the photos, allow you to adjust where the corners are. You can make it brighter, darker. You can rename files. You can, and the feature that I love is you can make multi-page PDFs. So you can scan in multiple things and save it as one PDF file. But use your phone to scan stuff. It works
Yes.
really, really well.
Yes, and my wife has been going through some old photos, family photos, and she wanted me to scan them in, and I did it the way you would not want to. I was at one of my clients, and they have a big, printer scanner thing. I laid a bunch of photos down. I did a high quality scan. Then I took that high-res image into my computer, opened it in Photoshop, cropped each one, saved it out, and yeah, it was probably more time consuming than just using the Google photo scan. But I will say too, these were photos from the 80s, so not the best quality, but even just scanning them in and then open them in like Apple Photos and just doing the auto enhance, the scanned photos ended up looking better than the original because it lightened them up. There was a lot of dark pictures. So yeah, with a couple quick things, you can actually probably end up with something better than the original, depending on how much time you want to put in. But you can pretty quickly scan them in, and it is a nice way. I do have a drawer full of photos that some rainy day I would like to do the same. A lot of memories that paper's not going to last forever, and then you get them on your computer, and since everyone follows one backup is none backup, you'll have it around forever. So,
and it's taken me 40 odd years to finally get on board with the idea that done is better than perfect. And
yes.
Even though scanning stuff in with your phone is not perfect, it's done, and you can enjoy things and move on with your life. So
yes. Well, let us move on to our takes of the week. Now, it seemed to be a pretty slow news week. I'm guessing some of that is what's happening in Ukraine and Russia that we aren't spending a lot of time on. And then also the new Apple products came out. So most of the news has been based around the Mac Studio, the Mac Studio display, the iPad Air, the new iPhone SE. I will just quickly say that everybody's saying the new Mac Studio, which is kind of the double stack of the Mac Mini, is an amazing computer that most people don't need. The Mac Studio display, I was reading this morning, it's basically the internals of an iPad built into a display. It's got 64 gigs of storage and what are the A13 chip in it or something. There does seem to be some software bugginess, but again, starting at $1,600, I'm guessing it's not something that a lot of our listeners are running out to buy. But if you're in Belgium and you got a Mac Studio display, only if you're in Belgium and got a Mac Studio display, please let us know how it is, because it is Belgium Week on the Not Nerd podcast.
It is, and I was looking at Best Buy the other day. I was looking at the store, but then I walked in and actually did some shopping.
Yes.
And I saw that they had the Mac Studio display on display, and I got to touch it and look at it and do all that stuff. It's nice. And I was comparing the quality of that screen with one of the 21-inch iMacs that was next to it, one of the new iMacs. Yeah. They're very comparable. Right?
Yeah.
So you're not. Here's the moral of the story. If you've got $1,600 to spend, I would just buy an iMac, because you get the computer and a little bit smaller display that is every bit as good to the untrained eye. So,
unless you have the specific need for a lot of power with the Mac Studio and then a amazing top of the line screen for the Mac Studio display, you're probably much better off looking at a different option. But there were a couple stories this week that I did pick out, and one is Meta is finally rolling out Instagram's promised parental controls, which is probably a good thing in this day and age. So the subheadline is allowing parents and guardians to keep a watchful eye. So it's much like is it Apple parental controls, where you can kind of limit apps and
It's called Screen Time.
Oh, screen time, yes. But they've announced some of this stuff. It was announced back in December. It's been launched now in the U.S. But yeah, so it gives you some supervision. You can see, who your kids are following, how much time they're spending in there, what they're doing. Which as a parent that is not of a child who is not on social media and hopefully won't be anytime soon, but it is something that I think is important for parents to know what their kids are up to.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough row to hoe, as Grandma used to say.
Yes.
Managing that screen time really is helpful, but Instagram being purchased by Meta/Facebook was one of the worst things that could have happened to that application,
Yes.
honestly. But now rolling in some parental controls is kind of taking back some ground in the dumpster fire, which I believe it's become over time. I mean, a lot of people love Instagram, but they've introduced the ads, and people are like, "Well, the ads are really good." But with any social media platform, there's always bullying, there's inappropriate content, there's extremist type stuff. So if you have kids using these tools, it's good to be able to at least have a little bit of control over what they're seeing, or at least knowing what they're seeing so that you can have a discussion about it with them.
Yes. Yeah. So they're also rolling it out for the Quest VR headsets as well. But it looks like, it's really designed for children under 13, which really shouldn't be on social media anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But parents can automatically, from their own account, turn this on for their child's account. And then for teenagers, 13 and up, the parents can request it, but the teens have to approve it. And so they've seems like they've thought through some things, and hopefully it'll help avoid some bad stuff from happening on the internet.
We're in the awkward stage of parenting where I have a high school student who turned 18 in November. So he's technically an adult, but he's still in high school, and he lives with us. And so it's just like, how do you manage this? Yeah.
Yes. I do not have all the answers for that, for sure. And because we love Meta so much, the second Meta story of the week is it's kind of a first world problems for sure, but Meta employees left to do their own laundry as perks get cut.
Oh, how dare they?
Yeah, so after, as people are coming back to the offices, in-person work, that Facebook has looked at some of, famously the big tech companies have all these amazing perks. And apparently one of them was that you could do all your laundry while you were at work. And another one was that you got free dinner before you left work. Mm-hmm. Well, on the free dinner, they're moving it from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. where you can pick up your free dinner. But the last shuttle, if you ride the shuttle, leaves at 6 o'clock. But reading through the article, it sounds like, employees would be rushing out to get out of there at 6 o'clock. They'd run by the cafeteria, pick up 10 steaks, put them in a duffel bag, hop on the free shuttle, and head home. So they're just trying to, limit some of the things. But they did on the other side, which I think this is great. In response to the changes, Meta said it would be increasing its employees' wellness stipend from $700 to $3,000 this year. The current stipend covers costs related to physical or mental health, financial planning, and care for children, older people, and pets. $3,000 a year to be able to put towards making yourself healthier as a whole, and to help cover some of those costs. I think that's much more important than laundry or free dinner.
Well, all these companies like Meta/Facebook, I'll never take Facebook out of the name because they switched to Meta so people would forget to disassociate with Facebook. But anyway, Facebook, Meta, this is all in the time when all these companies are making more money than they've ever made.
Yes.
And so I'm just like, I'm not one of these big, huge anti-work people that you see on Reddit and other places. And who was the guy who was interviewed that basically said that he was a mail carrier that lived in his parents' basement or something like that was like reinforcing stereotypes of these anti-work type people.
Yes.
I have to look at it with kind of a side eye, thinking they're making more money than they've ever made, yet they're cutting down on stuff like free dinners and stuff like that. Like, how does that really affect the bottom line? It has to be just a drop in the bucket for Facebook.
And they did. There was a little quote in the article from somebody, one of the higher ups at Facebook, saying that, grabbing the 10 steaks to go isn't, doesn't really help the company, but we're also eliminating 60 million to-go boxes per year by not doing this. So the environmental concerns, which just sounds like an excuse to save some money. But the whole idea of the dinner program was, hey, if you have to work really late, we're going to provide you a free dinner because you're here working, instead of, hey, you never have to buy dinner pay for dinner for your family and friends and neighbors that you don't like, because you can just grab them and run. But
well, I mean, there are ways to combat that. Just say, hey, you can have one box.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to help kind of guide some of those things, but and that's always the outlier too. How many people are actually taking 10 steaks? One guy out of 6,000 people. It's like, come on.
Well, I think what we can learn from this is that Meta needs to bring us in to do some consulting.
Yes, I would really love.
We do not come cheap, but we will come in, fix their problems, and you can pay us in steak.
Oh, absolutely, all day long.
Yes. And since it was a slow news week, every year or so, I like to remind people how many different tech stories I scroll through the headlines on each week looking for our stuff. And this one just caught my eye, of all these random companies that raise money. Cowbell Cyber raises $100 million to offer organizations continuous cyber insurance. So, that tech company we all know of, Cowbell Cyber, which that name, I just had to put it in the show notes. But yeah, so they raised $100 million. And I mean, there's probably 50 of these articles every week in my feed that I see on there that, of these companies just raising this massive amount of money and funding, and how that whole world, which we don't really discuss, is happening all the time. These people, I mean, $100 million for a company you've never heard of.
Well, but everybody needs more cowbell. That's for sure.
Yes, that is very true. And by continuously monitoring for threats, the solution provides the companies flexible insurance coverage that can keep up with the evolving risks of a dynamic enterprise environment. So a little word salad there for what this company does. But yeah, cyber attacks, and I didn't put it in here. The U.S. government put out something saying, please be aware of Russian cyber attacks incoming, but I try to avoid, unless they're too major, I could put in a dozen different security and privacy stories every week of breaches or hacks and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Cowbell Cyber, they're a thing.
That should be their slogan.
Yeah,
we're a thing.
We're a thing that you need for cyber stuff. And they could probably raise another $100 million just by putting that. Again, consulting. Not Nerd Consulting is open for business.
Yes.
If you want your business to raise a lot of money, come talk to us. Our bonus odd take of the week. I thought this was a fun one. I did not get a chance to play around with it a whole bunch, but Roland, which if you're in the music industry, you're probably aware of Roland. And as you open the link, it pops up with a little window saying the Roland 50 Studio. In celebration of 50 years, Roland has collaborated with sound designer Yuri Suzuki to create Roland 50 Studio, a digital reworking of some of their most famous and influential devices. The one that pops out for me as a child of the 80s and 90s and the birth of hip hop is the TR-808.
Yep.
The 808 kick drum makes the girlies get dumb, I believe is a lyric,
yes,
loosely quoted. But yeah, so they created these digital recreations of some of their sound creation devices, which a lot of music has been created on over the years.
And speak of cowbell, doesn't the 808 have the cowbell?
Yes, I'm sure it does.
Oh yes, there it is. Yeah, it's exactly what you would hear. I want to dance with somebody. Like all these 80s songs have that
Yeah.
cowbell at the beginning, the digital cowbell. And there are others. I think there's some Michael Jackson songs that
Yeah.
featured the 808 instruments. So as a kind of a little sidestep, there is a podcast called 20,000 Hertz that has an episode on the Roland 808 if you want to listen to that episode.
Very, very nice. Yes, it is very famous and is where a lot of our music has come from. So I thought this would be a fun one that you can go click some stuff and make some music, and maybe you'll have the next hit. Or once again, recreate the Not Nerd theme song on the TR-808, please.
That would be incredible.
Yes. Well, you know what else is incredible? Our picks of the week.
I'm going to be a little bit lazy this week, and I'm just going to say one word: Anker. And for all those nautical fans out there, I'm not talking about the ones that you drop out of a boat. And there's some cool videos if you want to see like a giant ship drop an anchor. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Or the videos where they're making the ropes for like tugboats and stuff like that. It's just massive stuff.
Yes.
No. I am talking about electronic manufacturer Anker. I recently recommended an Anker charger and an Anker cable for someone who wanted to replace a cable for an iPad or an iPhone or something like that. And she's like, well, what should I use? And I said, well, either buy Apple stuff or go Anker and save a few dollars. I can't really recommend anything else. Last week I talked about the battery pack, which I have no idea where that thing is right now. But the magnetic battery pack that snaps on your phone, they have a newer model. Well, it's not newer. It's a different model that I recently saw a review on. And, of course, I got a deal on mine is why I bought it.
Yeah.
But they have ones now, they're $70, but they have a little flap. So you attach the magnetic battery to the back of your phone, and they've got a little flap that you fold out. And so you can stand up your phone on the little stand. And I mean, just stuff like that is just super cool. Now, what I'm planning to do after seeing this is I'm going to buy one of those little stands for your iPhone that you stick on the back of your iPhone.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to stick it on the back of my battery pack. And it'll be collapsible and fold down, and I'll have the best of both worlds.
Very nice.
Meaning a cheap product.
Yes.
And all the functionality of the more expensive one. But Anker, if you're looking for cables, chargers, other accessories for your phone, you cannot do much better than Anker.
No, and they've got, USB-C hubs, docking stations. They actually have their power stations, which are like car battery size charging devices. And I did send you, so I'm going to take claim for you, making this pick of, they have put out a teaser that they have a 3D printer coming.
Yes.
So much like Wyze, they're branching out. But yeah, they've got some good quality products where it's not the most expensive, not the cheapest, but the quality is always there. So,
I've never been dissatisfied with an Anker product.
Very nice. I do like Anker. Well, my pick of the week this week is Galaga Wars Plus. Now, Dave, you might be saying, Nate, I picked Galaga Wars on episode 56.
I was going to say that.
We live in the future on January 5th, 2017, with the amazing album art for that, or episode art of my IRL Pro Tip bell that you bought for me, the brass bell. But you on that one picked Galaga Wars for iOS. Now, you might have mentioned I said Galaga Wars Plus.
Oh.
Which means it is part of Apple Arcade. So it was funny, I've been playing it on my phone, and if you've ever played Galaga, you've got your little spaceship. There's a bunch of other spaceships that are shooting at you, and you're trying to shoot them first. Now, I was trying to download it on my iPad, so I went to the App Store, and I accidentally downloaded just the regular Galaga Wars. As soon as I opened it, I was like, nope, this isn't it, because an ad popped up.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about with Apple Arcade, there's no ads, but you do have your daily challenges, and, so you can level up your ships, and there's multiple levels. I really like the gameplay of it. You only need one finger. You just hold down your finger and move around, and while your finger's on the screen, it's shooting. And then as soon as you release your finger, it pauses the game.
I already had this installed on my device, and now I know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day. So
yes. You'll have to go into Game Center and see what my high score is and challenge me to beat that, which the Game Center seems to work on this. We've talked about how Apple's Game Center is kind of weird, but you have some achievements, but then you can also look at, the leaderboards worldwide or your friends. So I am net back. I don't know if it'll let you add me as a friend, listeners out there.
Yes, and I'm Davy B, DAVYB.
Yes, yeah. So looking at the current high scores for my friends group, number 2 is Davy B with 11,706 points. And then I am in first place out of my friends group, which is just 3 different people on this game, with 1,041,369 points.
So I just have to close the gap between 11,000 and 1 million. So I need to...
Yeah, so it actually tells me at the top, Davy B, 1,029,663 points behind you. So... I'd like to. That's why I made it the pick, just to show you. I'm sure by next week. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's got a very updated version of Galaga, which those type of shooter games I was a big fan of back in the arcade days. And
yeah, Galaga is one of my favorite games of all time. It's amazing.
Yeah, so the benefit, if you have Apple Arcade, again, not having to sit through the ads or in-app purchases. You cannot make in-app purchases. You just have to earn your gold and your little charging things or whatever to do your upgrades. It is a fun game, and I've been having fun playing that one. And we've lost Dave, so I'll just close out the show because he's playing. He's already trying to get up to my score. But yes, with that, we are going to wrap up this episode. My voice held out better than I thought, so I'm glad for that. But thank you for listening. Thank you, Belgium. Thank you, everybody. Share it with a friend. Let us know what questions you have about technology. We did not get into this week in text messages, but we did hear from Todd and Elliot on some various things this week. So other people can ask us questions too, and we're constantly giving out tech information. So that's why we do the podcast, to be able to share it with everybody so that you can get out there and tech better.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's almost like I've never used a computer before.